Despite his country facing a security crisis for one entire year, it seems like Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is nowhere near close to losing power in his country. Now, when will he let go of the Gaza war? For more, we're joined by Professor Robert Lawrence. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
So let's jump right into it. How is Netanyahu really building on his power even further in his country?
Yeah, well, we've seen some polls, recent polls out of Israel, showing that Benjamin Netanyahu and his governing coalition would win if another election were held today. Actually, since the first time since the Hamas attack on October 7th, they would win an outright majority in a hypothetical election. I would argue he's building on the momentum from this recent unprecedented success in dealing with the axis of resistance. They've been able to take down the top three tiers of Hezbollah's command structure. They eliminated Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, of all places, and they showed the distance they can cover by hitting the Houthi port of Hodeidah. They largely repelled the ballistic missile attack last week from Iran, even though some missiles did get through, then they're going unreported. But in general, Israel seems to be on the front foot in this regional conflict that now has 6 or 7 fronts. So he's riding this wave of momentum, but that doesn't necessarily translate into steadfast support in Israel. He still has a lot of domestic problems to deal with, and I think this wave could end quickly if operational success is halted, or if something bad happens to the hostages, or if the axis of resistance continues to be able to hit targets inside of Israel like we've seen in the last 24 hours in Haifa or Tel Aviv.
Well, then, does that mean that now we'll continue to, ignore Washington's call for Israel to halt the fighting in Gaza? What do you think?
All right. Well, just days after President Biden pushed for a 21-day ceasefire in Lebanon, Netanyahu ordered the strike that killed Nasrallah. Additionally, all of the shuttle diplomacy and the multilateral efforts made during the summer didn't yield any ceasefire in Gaza. So it would appear that the U.S. or the current administration is either not able or not willing to steer Israeli decision-making in the direction it prefers. Naturally, Biden has the capacity to make himself very difficult to ignore if he applies the right pressure.
Right.
But as of yet, I would argue because of U.S. electoral politics, this hasn't been a course of action that the administration deems necessary.
Well, then, do you think Netanyahu's, such firm grip on the war will eventually play a critical role in the upcoming election in November? What's your take on this?
Well, I think it's going to depend on how circumstances evolve in the next days and weeks. So any escalation is going to negatively affect oil prices. And this is happening at a time of economic hardship in America. Americans have been dealing with inflation for years, and adding high energy costs in the lead up to an election is going to hurt the incumbent administration. Also, I believe there's 7 swing states that are all in the margin of error, meaning that the difference between candidates is just 1 or 2 points. Now, in some of these swing states, like Nevada and Pennsylvania, you have large Jewish populations.
Right.
In Michigan, you have a large Arab population. And in a recent poll by the the Arab American Institute, Harris is 18 points behind where Joe Biden was in the 2020 election right now. 18 points is very significant. And even actually toe-to-toe amongst likely Arab voters, she's trailing Trump right now. So the administration is walking a bit of a tightrope in its electoral strategy. She can't afford to look weak in support of a major U.S. ally in the region, but she doesn't want to upset the more progressive wing of the party with whom, for whom this is a major issue. So, if you contrast that with the Republicans, there's wide support for Israel. So there's very little risk in sticking to a pro-Israeli agenda for the Trump-Vance ticket. But, if like we saw in the vice presidential debate the other night, this is a very difficult line to take for the Harris-Walz administration or candidacy because they're more vulnerable to voters' reactions to what happens in the conflict. So Middle East policy could be a determining factor in voting amongst certain demographics. And in swing states, especially where the vote is most important, this could have serious effects.
Well, Professor Lawrence, then why is Israel yet to retaliate against Iran? I mean, is it still contemplating what actions to take? I mean, how likely is it that Israel will hit oil facilities in Iran, like you briefly mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I think Israel is taking its time in weighing out its options. It's going to retaliate, but how is difficult to answer. Regarding what Israel will target, there are several options. They could hit conventional military sites like launch sites, command and control centers, and air defenses. Economically, they could hit power generation plants or petrochemical plants. Of course, it could hit Iranians' nuclear facilities, though they are deep in the ground, or try to hit its oil infrastructure. Or in the most extreme case, it could target leadership personnel. And that's an option that would have seemed crazy a couple of months ago, but given the circumstances now, it's on the table, I think. All of these will have repercussions. Iran or its proxies could target Gulf states and their oil infrastructures. Shipping around the Bab al-Mandab and the Red Sea could be under increased threat through the Houthis. Or if the nuclear facilities are hit, that may encourage Iran to withdraw from the NPT, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and rush towards making a bomb. So I would imagine there are a lot of robust debates going on in Israeli circles right now about what targets should be in a cost-benefit analysis. But really only the Israeli decision makers know. But I'm sure that oil facilities are near the top of the list.
Right, it won't get any prettier. All right, Professor Lawrence, thank you so much for connecting with us this morning. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.